We got City Councilman, Yonkers City Councilman Chris Johnson in the building. Let me get your official applause there.
There you go. I was waiting for the applause. I wasn't coming in for
that. You are rerunning for your seat.
Yes, sir.
And we had a young lady here last week?
Last week.
2 weeks ago. Was it last week?
I think it was last week you had
Okay, right. And she is also running for your seat.
Something like that.
Y'all are running for the same seat. Yeah.
Well, I'm currently sitting in the seat, so when people ask me who I'm running against, I like to, just let them know I'm not running against anyone. I'm running for re-election, and she's running against me.
Okay, that's what's up. So, for the people that don't know you,
absolutely.
Is this your first term?
This is my first term. I'm finishing my first term. In Yonkers, we're term limited. We only get 2 shots at this consecutively. So I'm finishing up my first 4-year term.
So you only get two consecutive terms.
Yeah.
So you can run 2 terms, sit out again, then run 2 more terms and sit out again, then run 2 more terms. Oh wow.
People kind of get tired of you though after a while.
Hey, we got somebody been in for about going on his 5th term. So
I hear that. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
No comments.
Yes. So so now tell everybody a little bit about who you are, why people should vote for you, why.
So Chris Johnson, I've been on the Yonkers City Council now for 3.5 years, got elected in 2011 in a 3-way primary. Then I won the general election in November. When I took office, one of the things that I was kind of worried about, maybe not worried, I was nervous, was, as a legislator, your job is to create laws and find out creative ways to help the people through legislation. So I was wondering if I would be able to do that well. You have ideas, but how do your ideas translate on paper, and then how does that paper affect people's lives? Well, I've been able to effectively do that, at least I believe so. One of the big pieces of legislation, I think the biggest one, is our affordable housing ordinance. What we passed in Yonkers, it requires 10% of any structure with 100 or more units to be affordable, and it tiers it so that developers can't just give all of the units to the higher end people that fall into the affordable category. A certain amount have to be, within a certain percentage, another percentage, and another percentage.
So not an affordable housing building, but just portions of the building have to be
portions
affordable.
Of the building, absolutely. Okay. So that was one. I think seniors, people always say, what are you going to do for seniors? What can you do for seniors? And so that was obviously something that was heavy and laid heavy, and I had to think about it. But the state allows us to freeze a senior's rent if they live in ETPA housing and if
they live in what?
ETPA housing. So
what's
that's
that?
rent
For people
regularized.
That don't know. Yeah.
That's rent stabilized housing. It's stabilized by the county. So if you're under the rent guidelines board that meets every year and sets the new rates of increases for landlords, if you're covered under that, then you fall under this category. And if you spend more than 1/3 of your rent on more than 1/3 of your income on your rent, then you can have your rent frozen. So we were able to raise that rate, and we did that twice under my leadership. I think, what was interesting, I did watch your show last week, and first I do want to say thank you for having me on. I did not thank you all. I appreciate the work that you guys do. I really was interested last week, and I think I'm going to be a regular listener after I took a look at last week's show. Okay. And then hopefully you guys can have me on when it's not just political.
Right. I mean, and you local, so if there's anything coming,
man, you've been invited, brother. Don't act like we didn't invite you.
I got invited a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, well, before that, man, I think we've been trying to tell you.
I don't know.
Before that, brother.
Well, I actually just came in contact with you recently because somebody I was in the industry with for years, I guess, was a college friend of yours? Or?
Well, yeah, we met at an alumni event. So I went to Long Island University, CW Post. Shout out to CW Post. We have 2 members of the city council that went to Post, actually, me and Councilwoman Pineda. And we met there, and so
I know Post used to have some of the best parties. That's all I remember. Post had some of the best parties.
That's it. Yeah. I can't say nothing about that, though. I'm an elected official, all the parties I go to are underground now.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but one thing I found interesting last week, you asked the question, what pieces of legislation has he or has he not passed that have affected the people? And there was no answer. But the reality is, if you're going to run for a legislative seat, then you need to know legislation, and you need to know how it affects people, and you need to make sure that you have ideas on how to create or change legislation so that you better people's lives. That's my job.
Right. Of course.
Now, did you have that idea when you walked in the door?
No, you don't have specific ideas when you walk in the door, but I think some people do. I didn't. I had ideas in general. Like I knew I wanted to work on our criminal justice system, and specifically in the city of Yonkers, and work around making sure that we reduce crime. And how do we do that? So when I took office, one of those things was to have conversations with those people who are affected by, and those people who take those practices and those ideas and put them into the streets. So I was talking to our PBA leaders. I was talking to the rest of our union leaders. I was also talking to regular people on the streets about what their experiences were with our police officers, and then that's how we got
caller, please hold.
We got from the state, actually. We got a grant called, it's a SNUG program. They have it in New York City and some other cities throughout the state, where they take formerly incarcerated individuals, put them back into the streets because they want to change their lives, and they talk to the people who were doing the things that they once did, telling them how that's not the way to live their lives, so on and so forth. And since we've had that program instituted in Yonkers, shooting specifically, because that's what they focus on, gun violence, has decreased every single year since they've been introduced. I have to thank Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins for bringing that program to Yonkers. But then I was able to, in the budget, not a legislative item, but a budgetary item, stick money in there every single year. We actually doubled it the first year, and it stayed flat since then, making sure that the program stays funded so that we can have those people out there working hard.
I want to pause for 1 second. Our co-host Cynthia Turnquest Jones is on the phone.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
Hey, Cynthia, what's happening?
We have.
What's up, Border Locks?
we have.
What's going on, Rashad? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
What's up, brother in the middle? How you doing?
I'm doing well, Cynthia.
That's Yonkers.
All right.
Yonkers City Council. Yonkers City Councilman Chris Johnson, who the
I was listening. I was listening to him. Appreciate everything that you're doing in regards to Snug. We had Snug up there in the studio a couple of months back when we first started, right?
Right.
We had Snug come up in there, and I had the opportunity to work with Snug on a project that they was doing at the YMCA. The YMCA. It was a Thanksgiving meal that they had for the hungry and the homeless, and those brothers were truly on point and embrace the community. I really like what they do.
No.
So I appreciate with you making sure that they, keep that going.
Absolutely.
Now, hey, Chris. So Snug, like that comes from. I remember when when they first started Snug. I think Malcolm Smith.
Yes.
Was one of the brainchilds, so he really played a big part in developing the SNUG program. Shout out to Malcolm Smith.
He was the majority leader of the state senate at the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, so how does so the money for SNUG is state funded, correct?
Not anymore. Well, it gets some partial state funding.
Okay.
But in Yonkers, the city puts it in. I know New York City has a structure where they put some of their own tax dollars in as well.
All right. And the success of the program is I know in Yonkers is doing very well.
Absolutely.
What do you would say that contributes to the actual success?
Look, I think when you look at how we handle our criminal justice system, it's very it's reactive. So it's like incident happens, then you see the police. Incident happens, then there's an ambulance, so on and so forth. But what SNUG does is it identifies the people who are going to do those things, and it says, hey, don't do that. So instead of having the shooting and now you have to take the shooter off the street and that stops 3 or 4 more shootings, you don't even have the first shooting because they recognize who the shooter is, why the shooter might want to do that, and say, look, there are other ways where you can handle that. There are other things that you could be doing with your life. These are going to be the consequences that come of that. And because of who they are, they can the actual phrasing that they use is credible messengers. Because they're credible messengers who have lived that life, who have done those things, the people that they're talking to respect that. It's not like me going into the streets with my suit on and my tie saying, hey, don't shoot. They're going to say, who are you? You don't know about the life that I live. But these guys who actually did that stuff, who served time, can come back in the streets and actually talk to them and hopefully change that behavior.
No, just and that's good because I was, and
that's good to hear. Also, I sense that you have a sort of respect and understanding that there is a need for something like Snug. If you don't have the respect and understanding for a need of something like Snug, then you won't go out and say we need to still have this in place.
Right.
Well, I mean, AJ, you're going dark on the screen.
I'm going dark on the screen. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
They can't
No
see
light
you,
over
man.
here?
Yeah.
They can't
Oh,
see
because
you.
I can see myself in the screen.
You know they want to see you.
Well, anyway, I'm just letting you know, bro.
Okay, well, I
So
think one of the lights got to face me or something. I don't know.
now, when we talk about Yonkers, the first thing comes to mind, when, with our listeners, is the different cases of police brutality and the issue most recently with Dario Tenner. I know there's some things that you can't talk about, or people are not privy. But from a city council person's standpoint, who is in Yonkers, what is going on in the process of the Department of Justice, so people can be clear, and how is that changing the culture of law enforcement in Yonkers, so that we will not be, we're not continuing to hear these type of stories that comes out of the police department.
So I want to get this out of the way first because I'm told that I don't do this enough. I want to give credit to our commissioner, Charles Gardner, and to the mayor, Mike Spano, for doing a good job in our city with regards to lowering the crime rate and making sure that our department is changing. But here's where I do the but and make the turn. The DOJ is still in Yonkers, still investigating, still taking information, still listening to the concerns of the people who have been mistreated by our police department. And so obviously there are still things that need to be changed. The commissioner has told the council, he has told people in community meetings that 95% of the requests that the DOJ has made, DOJ's Department of Justice, that they've been instituted as policies within the police department.
That help?
And so we're hoping that 95% actually reflects real change and has real results. Now, I have asked him to speak publicly on that 95% because you don't want to.
Because we don't know.
Because we don't know what that 95% is. What are those items that we're really talking about? So I've spoken to Councilwoman Corazon Pineda, who is the chair of the Municipal Operations Committee, and I've asked her to hold a committee meeting where we call in the commissioner and we talk about what those things are. Now, our attorneys obviously have some issues, so I said, look, then prep him. Then make sure he's ready and tell him what he can't address.
But I don't understand. I mean, the Department of Justice put out a technical letter almost 8 years ago, with the suggestions, with the recommendations. I mean, we did this, we did that, we did this.
That's what we're asking for. That's what I wanted to say.
See, and I think it's crazy that the city councilman does not know what items that they have corrected, if they corrected any. See, because if you're going to say you have 95% of the items corrected, and then we have 20 to 30 cases thrown out by 2 cops that constantly lied on search warrants, something's not fixed.
And were indicted, like the only officers indicted in Westchester.
Yeah, basically. And, something's not fixed.
No, there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot.
Right, and I'm glad, and I'm glad that you said that, and because, I mean, it gives you, it shows your honesty, that we still, have a lot of work to do, and we still have to move, and we still move forward, and that they're not even being honest with you on what items out of the technical letter.
They're being honest, just not open. They're being honest.
Well,
It's a 95%.
well, yeah,
it's
but-
honest. But they're not being open because they're not
Okay,
telling you
95
what
look,
that
look,
is, what those 95% is. You know, one of the things.
95%. Jesus. I mean, what? I mean, 95% of what? You know,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and what's 95% of 95% of of 2 points you got because
Right.
I mean because one of the main things is that the policies and procedures were antiquated and looked like they were copy and paste. So did they actually put together a team to actually redo the policies and procedures that they're actually up to date? You know, I mean, can they say, okay, now we have these policies and procedures and they're based on New York State minimum standards and they're based on national standards for CALEA? You know, if they can't do that, then they're not even close to the 95% because 95% of it is the problem with the policies and procedures. No continuum of force. Did they institute that? You know, I don't know. Clearly not, because a man went out a window. So those are the type of questions that they have to answer because we're not seeing it.
One of the things that that we have spoken about is that they instituted a system which was fought where officers who are regularly involved in incidents are tracked. Their issues are tracked. So it's not like on paper, oh, you know, this person had an issue and, oh, you know, I think maybe I heard they had an issue a month ago.
Right.
We know now because it's in the system, it tracks it, and it can say, hey, you've had 5 incidents, and the captain can pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on? You're really causing this problem. You're causing the city money, so on and so forth. And I think that is one of the things, you know, that puts officers on notice. It's like you're not.
Yeah,
gonna,
but I got to just interject in that because it sounds like the same thing with the educational system. I'm an educator, been an educator for about 20 years now, right? And so you have individuals that have this track, but you still can't get rid of them.
Well, so this is one of the things that I don't know if the Department of Justice is talking to our police department about, but one of the problems that I think we have is when these reports are made, right? Someone makes a report and says, this officer, you know, abused me in this manner, and they go through the internal affairs process, and then at the end of the process, the commissioner says to the officer, you're suspended, you're on desk duty, you're fired, so on and so forth, but then the victim, the person who made the complaint, has no idea what happened. And so that person never feels like that justice was done. However, justice may have been done. So we've got to come up with a process that doesn't obviously, you know, sell out anybody, take away anyone's rights to privacy and so on and so forth. But if you're not doing your job properly and somebody makes a complaint and then that complaint is that's rectified, then the person who made the complaint, the victim, quite honestly, should know what was done. And so we have to work that out.
Let me ask you a question. Are they thinking about putting something in place? Because right now in the educational system, they have in place, if you went in and looked up my name, you'll know all of the qualifications that I have, right? Whether I was qualified, whether I passed the test, failed the test, and all of those things are in there. So I understand having a track record, but what is going to be done with the track record? You can have a track record as much as you want. You can take as much data as much as you want, but what are you going to do with it? I understand an individual being sat on desk duty, but how many times are you going to go on desk duty? What is in place for when a person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, not adhering to what they're supposed to be doing? How do you get that person out of the system? They don't belong there. You have an individual that's on tape choking the hell out of somebody, and they get on desk duty. I don't comprehend that, right? Where's the penalization? Where's the fine that is attached to doing something like that? It's like if a student is in school and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, they get suspended from school, and they put them in another site. And after they finish doing what they're supposed to do, they come back, right?
Right.
Well,
So
that is exactly what's going on with the police department.
Yeah.
They do something, they go away, they come back. What the hell is that? What is that?
That defeats the purpose.
Right. But Cynthia, this goes back to what I was saying before when we talk about police unions and actual negotiations and putting forth. The municipalities are going to have to, if they do not and the bottom line is, if these municipalities do not put in as far as a civilian complaint review board, if they do not put in that, then the process is going to have to be negotiated through the collective bargaining agreement on how they're going to discipline the officers. Because
So Damon, once they have a civilian review complaint board, right? What is in that complaining? What happens there? I'm looking for somebody to get fired. That's what I'm looking for.
well,
See, that's the issue right now, because we're talking about two systems that appear to be working the same exact way. The educational system, the police department, right? You got teachers, they can't teach a mouse how to get out of a brown paper bag, right? And they call it a lemon dance. And they lemon dance these lemon heads from one school to the next, just effing up children, one school year after year after year. It's like you rolling dice. You tell them, listen, I'm going to give you a satisfactory, but you got to get the hell out of here and go to another school. And they go to another school where they mess up. But they don't get fired. You understand what I'm saying?
I got you.
Because when you have an officer that do the things that they've been doing, that is considered an incompetent officer.
Absolutely.
Am I right or wrong?
Right. But
and so that right now is the beef in New York State, because that is what's on the table right now.
People coming in.
That is on the table right now in New York State, where they are deeming teachers incompetent. So if you deem incompetent, first of all, nobody gets tenure quick like how they used to get it. So I don't know how quick an officer could come in and just, you good. You know, how long are you on probation?
I want to table this conversation because this could be a show by itself. And since we do have two other city council candidates waiting in the wing, the person, Ivy had a lot more time to talk because we didn't have no other guests. So we might have to actually have Chris come back. But Chris, but Chris, I want you to address more of your platform. You know,
but anyway, listen. I'm getting ready to hang up, right?
Okay.
I'm getting ready to lay back down.
Okay.
The reason I didn't come in because my car got all smashed up, and
I came and picked you up.
It's not even a. Nah, today I had to go and get everything.
All right.
Well, you okay though, right?
No, I'm not okay, man. They messed up my car.
Okay. I got you on that, but physically you're okay though.
I didn't pay the first payment yet.
Oh wow.
Damn.
All right, y'all. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Hey, you got that insurance that gives you the brand new car?
I'm getting it. Yeah, I'm getting. I gotta get a brand new truck. Anyway.
There you go. That's what's up. All right.
I'm gonna let y'all later.
You got it.
Cynthia took Quest Jones on the phone.
All right.
So as I was saying, I wanted to be real respectful because, like I said, last week we had a guest canceled. So Ivy was afforded a lot of time that I'm not able to afford you today.
Enough.
So we're gonna have to have you come back again.
Hey,
but I want you to, before you go, take this time to address your platform, anything you need to get out to the people, how people can contact you, everything,
So you can go to my website, www.christopherforyonkers.com. Christopher, CHRISTOPHER, for spelled out FOR, Yonkers, YONKERS. .com, and you can see some issues there. I've got a whole thing about what I've done in the last 4 years, what I've been able to accomplish along with my colleagues, because we don't do anything alone. It's a 4-member council. It's a 7-member council. You kind of need 4 votes to get anything passed. So it's been a little bit of a struggle at times, but we've been able to find some creative ways to push a couple things
votes.
through.
We got 5 members and need 3 votes and can't get nothing passed. So
as the number shrinks, it gets tougher. I at least I think. I was talking to a New York City Council person, and she said to me, "Oh, you only have 7? That makes it easy." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't, because I could get to 3 really quick. But that 4th vote, if a couple people say no, then I'm done. It's a wrap." So when you have a larger board, then there's a lot more ways to get to your number, whatever your win number is, whatever the number that you need to get to is. Look, I just want to be able to put out what I've done, what I've been a part of, and maybe even talk a little bit about what are the things that I'm looking forward to do. I've been able to co-sponsor some body camera legislation with Councilwoman Pineda. I think Minority Leader Sabatino is on that as well. I'm not sure. And we want to bring the commissioner in front of us to talk about that as well. I think one of the important things about being an elected official is how you use your position. So you guys got a radio station, you guys have a website where you put out information, where you talk about you have these important conversations. But as an elected official, I get to have the conversations directly with the commissioners, directly with the staff members.
That's right.
And the people come to me directly with their issues, so I can kind of get a mix. And I have those conversations with union leaders and so on and so forth about what needs to change, what we need to see. And they don't always agree. They don't always agree on day one. They don't always agree ever. But I'm having a conversation, and I'm still pushing them in the direction that my constituents feel they need to be pushed in. We were able to do a lot of things in the budget in the last couple of years. We put crossing guards back. We have a lot of intersections in the city of Yonkers where it's frankly just dangerous, and we got a lot of kids walking to school. If you live a mile or less away from your school, you got to walk. So we were able to reinstate crossing guards when I was the budget chair, as well as keep libraries open on Saturdays and Sundays. The budget before I got elected, they closed the libraries on Saturdays and Sundays. So let's talk about kids not having a place to go, our youth not having anything to do. That limited it even more. So we were able to get libraries open on Saturdays and on Sundays. Every single street in the first district that was rated a 3, 4, or 5 on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst, 1 being the best, is on the repaving list for this year. So your street, we did that in last year's budget. So if your street was rated a 3, 4, or 5, then it's getting redone. The problem with that is we had a really tough winter. So people are like, great, my street is a 5, but your street probably just became a 5, so it's not on that list. But if it was a 3 to 5 last year, then we were able to do that. I like to support organizations who do good things. We talked about SNUG earlier. SNUG comes out of the YMCA, so obviously we put money into there. We put money into Nebraska Community Center. I think everybody knows Jim Bostic. He's big in the district. West Hab, YTI Youth Theater Interactions, who they were about to close their doors last summer. 2 years ago, they were about to close their door, and they run a really robust summer program, and they've been doing it for decades. And so we were able to find a partnership with them in the Yonkers Park Department to make sure that they could keep their doors open, and they're still going strong in the city of Yonkers. And so when we look at our budget, we got to make sure that we're putting money into the organizations that are doing good things for people. Because, you can't just, what government does with $1 is much less than what a nonprofit does with $1. $1 in a nonprofit can, spread a month, 2 months, 3 months. $1 in government, it lasts you till lunchtime and then say, give me another $1. So we got to make sure that we're putting money into the organizations that are going to do the work. One of the things I stepped to at a meeting with an organization, and I was talking to them about my budget votes, and I passed the first 2 budgets when I was budget chair, passed unanimously, and the last 2 budgets did not pass unanimously, and they both went 6-1, and I was the one. So the person was like, well, you're the reason it didn't pass unanimously. And I said, yes, that's true, but the reason that I voted no is because the budget didn't work for my constituents. If the budget doesn't work for the people I represent, then I can't vote for it. Right. And specifically, it was about our education system, which everybody knows Yonkers annually has a budget issue, has a budget problem specifically with our education system. And so the last 2 budgets did not do for education what I think they should have done. We've cut arts, we've cut music, we've cut sports programs in the last 2 years, and I don't think that and I know that you can't run a good school system when you're cutting back on PE services, when you're cutting back on music, when you're cutting back on arts. So I had to make sure that we put those things in, and we had that included, and if it was not, then I was not going to vote for the budget. I guess we got a call out. Let's go.
We have a call. Please state your name and where you're and your comment. You're on People Before Politics Radio.
Hi, it's Gail Baxter. And hi, Chris.
How are you, Gail?
I'm glad that you're on the show, Chris. And, Chris has been very explicit with me. I think he's somewhat understated about some of the accomplishments, and I'm listening. And he hasn't mentioned a lot of stuff. But let me tell you, my big concern right now in talking to the people is that your relationship with Senator Cousins that is working in her office presents a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Can you speak to that and clearly use what laws, whatever, exonerates you from that level of gossip?
Well, thank you, Gail. As everyone in Yonkers knows, Gail is a voice of the people. She'll ask any question at any time because it's relevant, and so thank you for that question. So 4 years ago when I ran for city council, I was the deputy chief of staff to Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins. After getting elected, I took a much more reduced role. I went part-time in the senator's office, and I am the Yonkers City Council is considered a part-time position. You cannot pay all your bills, despite what people think. Nobody gets rich in government, at least not off the government salary. There's nothing in the law, state, federal, or otherwise. Actually, there is federal law that requires if you cannot work for the federal government and run for office, but it's only the federal government. We had the mayor of Rye, the former mayor of Rye, who is currently an assemblyman, Steve Otis. He used to be chief of staff to Susie Oppenheimer while he was mayor. You can look around the county. I think Jim Maizano works for the state Senate Republicans, and he is a county legislator. He's actually the minority leader on the county ledge. And so it happens. It happens often, and it happens regularly. And what people need to understand is that the senator and I take different votes. We often agree because we're of the same party, we're of the same mindset, and obviously I've gotten a lot of tutelage from her. So there are places where we agree, but there are times where we don't agree. But guess what? I represent my district and she represents hers, and yes, there is absolutely overlap, but that doesn't mean we take the same votes. Let me give you an example. We had the Trevor Park situation where we had a developer come in and wanted to put a parking lot under the park and put a park on top of it. The people in the community were not sold that was the right answer. And the project, as far as I saw, was 2, 3, 4 years down the line, but the developer was requesting a vote on some parkland alienation immediately. So I said, look, you don't need this vote today. This vote can wait 2 years. This vote can wait 3 years. And actually, to this date, nothing has happened. So I was right in stating that. So I refused to take a vote, and I abstained because my decision was not yet fostered. I was not against it. I was not for it. I didn't have a decision. So that went 6-0 to 1. And then it got to the state level, and the senator introduced it. She convinced her colleagues to do whatever she had to do in Albany. It passed unanimously in the Senate, unanimously in the Assembly, and then it came back to us. So actually on that vote, I am literally the only elected official in the entire state of New York who had a vote on that issue who didn't vote for it. And so that's an example. The senator and I, like I said, we agree on a lot of things. There's a lot that we agree on, but there are certain things that we don't agree on. And when we bump heads, that's fine. I know that my vote in Yonkers City Hall is a vote that the people have given me, and her vote in Albany is her vote. But when I'm sitting in her office and she tells me to do something, then I got to do it because my bread is buttered there for that particular issue. But when it comes to my vote, I represent people.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gail. And I want to ask Chris, for the sake of time, if you're available to come back for the first half an hour of next week's show.
Look,
if you could come in.
Yeah, we know you're a busy man.
But I still, again, in fairness, Ivy had a lot of time because we had no guests, and one of our guests had to leave early, so
Absolutely.
She got afforded a lot more time than she would have gotten, and I want to be fair. So, I do have people that came all the way from Peekskill, and I don't want to keep them.
We want to get them on. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think let's shoot some emails back and forth during the week. Okay. I do have something that I have to do on my calendar, but I may be able to swing back. Okay. And I would love to.
And if it can't be next week, maybe the week after. But I just want the invitation.
Absolutely.
I didn't give you your time, but we want you to come back though.
No, one of the things you did make an offer to my opponent. That I thought was interesting. You offered her, obviously, since the election is 5 weeks away and there's a couple more Sundays between now and then. to come back and have another conversation. I think what would be really interesting is if the both of us came on. Look, I think anytime
I don't have any problem with that.
I think anytime people get a real contrast, because she could say something and I come on and I'll say the opposite.
I actually like that, because when I find out, when we talk to politicians individually, we found out at Mount Vernon, they often sometimes pass the buck, and it's easy for me to say something about you when you're not here, but less likely
when to
be able to at least prove it if you're there. So
you get an opportunity to defend yourself if you did something or didn't do it.
So let's work on that. But again, I wanted to give you a half an hour another time too. So
I appreciate that.
So
no problem.
Let's get together via email. You gave us your website and everything. You have any social media or anything? Or
absolutely, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Honorable Chris Johnson, HON Chris Johnson. Twitter and Instagram. Obviously, you can find me on Facebook. Just go to my website and you can connect with me on all of those sites there. ChristopherForYonkers.com.
Absolutely, and we thank you for coming.
Thank you, brother.
And we welcome you back. And we definitely going to get that two of y'all together.
Or get you back on. You're coming back.
I'm coming back.
Regardless of the fact.
Well, absolutely. I mean, even before we get I want to get you back, give you another half an hour at least.
I appreciate it.
And then we'll work on getting the two of y'all together.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, bro.
Chris Johnson, City Councilman for Yonkers.